Andrew, good afternoon.
Afternoon, David. How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. A lot's changed since we last spoke.
Yes, yeah. I'm glad. Yeah, when we spoke, we were actually meeting each other. So,
Indeed. The world's changed a lot since then, as has your life since then.
yeah, I mean, it's been, oh, goodness me, it's been a roller coaster kind of couple of months, really, because on the one hand, I was actually kind of finishing a role, but finishing at a time that COVID was suddenly came onto the radar, and so trying to manage, help the management team manage the business at that time, which was daily changes, and that was quite interesting. And then, of course, I halfway through that whole period, I joined a new company as well. And I joined the new company at a time where I can't actually meet anybody at all. I can't meet any clients. I can't meet my colleagues, at least physically anyway. So it's been, it really has been, quite a strange couple of months. And I'm a sort of a particularly structured, planned person, I think. And I think that's when you are like that, this is like the anchor line, that was on your boat gets cut, and you're kind of like bobbing along like this, and I think it's quite difficult if you're quite a structured, planned person.
Yes. I think there's been unexpected challenges for everyone to deal with over the last month or so, but it must have been difficult to start a new job in the middle of this with induction process and learning the culture and all those kind of things. How has that gone, given all these circumstances? How are you adapting to it? How is the business adapting to these new, hopefully only temporary realities?
I mean, the first part is just simply the change, regardless of the industry that I'm now in. But interestingly, for me, there was actually good things and bad things. So if I start with the good things, there probably is more of an opportunity when you're based from home to actually do some of the learning stuff that you're supposed to do. And then this particular company I work for has a lot of learning that you're supposed to do as you get inducted. And I think that's probably would have been more challenging if I was also then going out and meeting clients as well, and then coming back and having to do that too. So in some respects, that maybe that's been a little bit advantageous. That's on one side, but on the other side, just not being able to interact with people that means that the team here in Thailand, that means our clients, that means people from around the region. So it's a global company. So it's normally an organization where you are, meeting people all the time and meeting clients especially as well. So that and if yes, we can do a lot. We can do that by this mechanism, but there things are missed from that. The sort of some of the chemistry of that is missed. Those interactions and body language and the banter at the beginning and that type of thing. It's different.
Yeah, I think I've really been looking forward to this chat with you actually, because you've had a long and illustrious career in many different countries, in many different sectors. So you've seen a lot more than most people have, which, a lot of the ability to forecast comes from our experience in the past. I know you've been with Microsoft in 4 different countries. Is that right?
Yeah, 4.
So leading, obviously, a major corporation there. You're Vice President DTAC, is that right?
Senior Vice President, yeah.
Okay, and then you're also Grant Thornton, PKF. So very different industries, but leadership, seeing where things go. What do you think about all of this COVID? I don't want to call it panic, but there's a lot of talk about the world's never going to be the same again. Everything's going to change. It's going to be a complete flip, 180. Is that hyperbole? Do you think it's realistic? What things do you think will carry on? What things do you think will only be temporary? If that's not too much of a question.
No, I know. I'm not sure that any amount of experience, in my career, anybody's career has, could prepare them for this. I mean, we are in uncharted territory to a large degree. I mean, I remember years ago, reading a book on the I think it was 1917, 1918 pandemic, flu pandemic. And I felt it was a very good book. And I remember coming out of that book thinking, this is going to happen again. I actually was sure, definite, it was going to happen again. I didn't know when, but it was going to happen again. And it was going to be bad. But what I realize now is that what I never factored in at the time is the interconnected economy that we're in. And that has been I think the real kind of shocker here, the stunner, is the effect on the economy. I mean, the virus is bad enough, but then if lots and lots of people are out of work and they have no jobs and there's no money going around, there's almost another virus, which is the economic virus as well. So, and I think that was nobody ever really thought about that. Actually, that's a whole new dimension. That's a big dimension. So that was a bit context, I think. I thought it was going to happen again at some point. I didn't know if I'd be alive, but I had a feeling it was going to happen again. But this I think is very powerful. I mean, we in some respects in Asia and Thailand, we're been a bit lucky, at least so far. I mean, we don't know what's coming in phase 2. We're not at the end, of course. We're not at the beginning of the end. So we're at the end of the beginning. So
sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's very unpredictable, of course, there. But I think the memory scarring in Europe and America, and I just don't know where we're going in America with them reopening again right now. I'm worried about that for America. The scarring is deep, very deep, I think, and these are going to be very powerful sort of behavioral motivators, not just from a work perspective, but also an economic perspective. Are people going to be spending money quickly? No, they're not. No, they're not going to spend money quickly. They're going to keep their money because they don't know what's coming. And almost everybody knows this is going to be at least an 18-month journey, at least. Economic confidence and reassurance is not coming anytime soon. It will probably pulse. I think there'll be pulses. It'll come backwards and forwards, I imagine, as we go through distinct waves of this. So I have to say that I'm more of a believer in a pretty serious change, I know it's a hackneyed term. I've actually been using it for years and years, actually talking about new normal. But I really do think we're in this new normal, and it's sort of, there's multifaceted reasons as to why we're in it, not just economic, but some other factors which we can talk about as well. So I think we are going to go into a period of profound change.
So thank you again for joining me for this chat. This is number 7. And there's been a common theme throughout all of them. Every person I've spoken to is much more experienced and wise than me, and I've been fortunate to share in their wisdom. But everyone's had a slightly different opinion on everything. But there's a spectrum of conversation that's happening around the office space and the remote work. Yeah. I think I am further to the other side than most people in this conversation, because I think we'll see an evolution. I don't think we're going to necessarily see a revolution, at least in my company. I'm seeing the world through my own lens here. For us, I was in the office yesterday with a small team, 6 or 7, and everyone was saying how much better it is to be together, to have that human interaction, to have the view, to have the fresh coffee, to have no disturbances. I think especially in Thailand, these are things that are going to be difficult to ever replicate remotely. I know that other industries, it's going to be a lot easier with automation, or maybe even work like accounting, where you can possibly do it with technology and you need to focus more. Sorry, very long-winded question there, but what is your stance on this office and remote work future?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So I think, even before this happened, a lot of people, there was a lot of scratching around the surface of this. Everybody wanted the government, for example, to be more digital. A lot of firms, I mean, we know, for example, Grant Thornton, went to more of a sort of shared service area, which is, economically good for them. So there was a trend anyway of this. I think what has been profound, I'll use that word again, is that it's suddenly happened. It suddenly happened very quickly. And what's amazed people, it certainly amazed me actually, is actually how easy it was, how actually quite painless it was, and how actually work could carry on, and how people could pivot to this much more easily, I think, than I think a lot of people imagine. Now that's an epiphany, I think, to people, because now that's hard to get back from there, because that was always going to be a question in people's mind. If nothing was ever going to drive this to happen like this, nothing. Without this happening, we would have never got to this point. But suddenly we are at this point. And I think what's amazed people is actually that it's possible. A lot of people, we're quite fortunate, I guess, we can commute easily to our workplaces. A lot of people cannot commute easily to workplaces. They're in a 2-hour traffic before they even get to the office, and a 2.5-hour commute on the way back, and so on and so forth. That is not a great life for those people. So I think there is a very deep realization that this actually can happen, and it's actually possible. Now, going to your point, I don't think we're at a 0 or 1. We're not saying let's all work from home, let's all go to the office. But what I do think is that we're probably more closer to the 0. Sorry, that doesn't look right, but we're closer to over here. And maybe there's a need for some remote working, so office space where people come together, but it's not going to be a permanent 100% solution, is really my point. And I think businesses will determine their own percentage of kind of skinniness for that. But I think most businesses realize, wow, we don't need to do this. We can work totally fine. And by the way, rent is the second highest cost for most businesses, behind staff costs. And I'm kind of a bit baffled as to why landlords are not being a little bit more flexible at the moment, because I think these things are remembered, and businesses, when they come out of this, are going to need to save costs. I mean, most businesses, I can't imagine any business which is not going to need to save costs. And there'll be some businesses, let's take hotels, for example, that would rather like to attract some people into their hotels using spaces that they are not using. So there's a paradigm change, and I think it's I'm not saying that we're going to end up in I don't think we're all going back to the office. I just don't think that. We're not all going to stay at home. But I think if I took that as a spectrum of 0 to 100, I think we're going to be in the 10s and 20s rather than the 90s and 100s. Now, from an extrovert perspective, like you, that's maybe not so attractive. But from an introvert perspective, people quite like that. So,
well, I have always considered myself an introvert. Maybe others might not, but I live alone and I enjoy the peaceful time. But actually have to spend all my time alone, I hate it. So.
maybe you're finding out. People are finding out things about themselves, I think, in this.
I enjoyed coming, a long day at work, come home, be alone, it's peaceful, and then just recovering all weekend. But when I can't speak for the world, but I think I draw energy from the community, bouncing ideas around and jokes and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it's going to be interesting how things play out. I think certain industries, it makes more sense. And obviously as a business owner, there is a logic to trying to minimize rental costs, because of course they actually the second highest cost. My concern is cultural though, that how do a company is an abstract entity, right? It's the promise that we make to our brand, is the promise that we make to our employees, it's the promise we make to our customers. My fear is that I think family may be a bit of an extreme word, but I see my colleagues as family members. I want to spend time with them, enjoy it. I don't really want to manage a team of freelancers. I don't really want to manage an outsourced company. It's not why I'm doing this. So yeah, so I'm
But then
sharing
remember,
my own concerns
no,
here
but
more than anything.
but let me talk to that. I've just joined a new company. I've never met a single person from my company.
Mm.
And I get their culture. I feel their culture. These are people I like. I know I like them. I know what their values are. I'm not reading it on a slide. I can feel it. I
Mm.
can. So, these things, again, they just, when we're talking through a screen, we don't get that. Maybe we don't get all of that. And maybe we have to develop senses, different senses, using technology than we would otherwise have. And I think that's quite possible. We'll find new technology solutions and crazy new ideas that we can use on technology where we sort of three-dimensionalize our experiences. And kind of because of this, I think. But I don't feel, having joined a company on the 1st of April, that I don't know these people, I don't know their culture, I don't know their values. I don't feel that at all. And I've never met any of them.
If you were 21, would you feel that way? I'm not saying that you're
so.
not 21. I don't know the details.
But here's the. I think you can see. I think here's another interesting thing is, those 21-year-olds, they're digital natives. This is their life. This is how we are not. We are digital immigrants.
It's how they execute, though, right? The execution can be bought and sold quite easily, but it's the cultural aspect that I fear for. Inculcating a new graduate, not just into a company's culture, but into work culture more generally, especially in Thailand. I'm reading a book by Larry Persons at the moment on how Thais lead. Really interesting book. I highly recommend it. And the hierarchy built into the system is, one of the questions running through my head. How would you take a 22, 23-year-old new graduate in a remote system and give them the kind of life experience they need, not just to be part of your brand, but to be part of to understand how work works? The need to not that you don't trust your staff to work remotely, but it's a very, very sharp change from university life to work life.
But this is good. Actually, we're on a segue here. But I think for me now, I'm really going to be a little bit controversial. Corporate culture in Thailand actually requires change. And part of that is this sort of hierarchical system. So in some respects, this is going to help break some of that down. It's going to allow these young people with these great ideas who are digital natives, this is their world. This is their world. With my small team here, they've just come up with some great idea. Even actually in the chamber, they've come up with some amazing ideas. Things I've never thought of. But they're bubbled up, So in some respects, the ability to embrace digital, it could really benefit some changes that we need to make. That's one of them. Things like transparency is another one. Technology is very good at making things open and transparent, and there's kind of takes out middlemen, which is where issues can occur, as we know. So there are some deep implications for kind of for actually embracing this. I mean, the guy, I think the guy who leads, actually I think he's the vice chair of True now, but he was in the papers this morning talking about this actually brings almost a sudden urgency to even deeper digitization, across the spectrum of everything that we're doing, and the way that citizens interact with governments, the way that we work inside companies. This could really help.
That's an interesting angle, because I've been thinking along the same terms in terms of digitization and digital transformation. I hadn't actually thought about the cultural disruptor that could bring, because it's a really good point. I think one of the things that I've realized during this period is, we've been working with many clients who do digital transformation, and we've been helping them to formulate messaging, but it's always seemed a bit abstract until this period right now, that digitization is giving everything a number, getting the data organized, getting things in order. The transformation part of digital transformation is when you use that data to change business models. But I guess that same transformation could be applied to cultural models too. It could avoid the need to have hierarchy, and a meritocracy could rise up from this and take over Thailand.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, those are dramatic. But I do. I don't. Yeah, absolutely. You're telling a good story. But I think this is good. This is good. This is, and of course, it's not just Thailand. There are many places that can benefit from this, and I think this is a key moment. I think, and in fact, what I think it's Kun Supachai was saying that this is it. We have to, in order to kind of, I don't know, survive is too probably stronger a word, but to exist in this new world, we have to absolutely drive this kind of digital transformation view.
That's actually a pretty neat segue to the next thing I want to discuss with you. So congratulations, first of all, on your new role.
Thank you.
I don't know that much about it yet, so I'm hoping you can educate me and the viewers at home or wherever they are. So obviously you must have seen the future in terms of what was coming with digital transformation to have influenced your decision. Could you talk a little bit about what your new company does and your role within that and how that fits into how you see the future going?
Yeah, so of course, I'm from a technology background. So, and of course, for the last 10 years, I've ended up in accounting firms, which is probably a surprise to everybody who knows me and everybody who worked with me in accounting firms. But one of the things that I did in both Grant Thornton and PKF is really try to help get people excited about what was possible from digital transformation, from transformation of really in those cases, the future of finance. I used to call it the future of accounting and finance, because I mean, it's still somewhat of a traditional industry. So, but actually, if you look at every sort of study of the industries which are going to be affected by automation, accounting is, I think, like number 2. Because accounting is about rules, and what a computer is very good at, they're about following rules. So, it was a real driver for me through both organizations to help us kind of get ourselves to a point where we were able to use technology to serve clients. Because actually, the tendency at the beginning was, it's like a child, I can't see you, so you can't see me, kind of thing like that. So, and in fact, the clients could absolutely see it, and we were and everybody was holding their hands to their eyes. The fact of the matter is that once you grabbed the sort of thorns and you decided to move your business, because there's a counterintuitiveness, because it's almost like I mean, clients themselves can use this technology. So why would you help clients in this? So, but actually, there is a really good marriage between those two things, because clients, for example, really want to get on with their business. They want to get on with meeting clients, with doing R&D, with doing marketing. Things like accounting is not something that they want to spend a lot of time on. They don't want employee number 2 being an accountant. Which is what has happened traditionally. Employee number 2 has to be your finance manager. They want employee number 2 to be their sales director. So by embracing digitization, by embracing cloud computing and accounting, and for example, you not only can provide those services through the cloud, but extraordinary things then start to happen as well, as that the client can participate in that process with you. You can add a sort of an ecosystem of other joined-on applications which can help them drive value for their business. You, the accounting firm, can turn yourself into a business advisor rather than an outsourcing accounting firm. So that's much more value add. You get away from pricing, then you get into value. So the journey was important, actually, and it doesn't just relate to that. It relates to how you do audits, how you do the accounting, how you do tax work, transfer pricing. I mean, everything in the accounting industry needed to be really driving technology. So my role inside those companies was really trying to get us to adopt technology, and the teams did great and rose up to that challenge. It wasn't always easy, I have to say, but but they did great. So I kind of was always on this mission about this digital transformation. In that case, it was in the accounting organization. But as I did that about a year and a half ago, I came across robotic process automation and hyper automation type work. And it really struck me. I thought, wow, everything I've been sort of talking about, this is the holy grail of this. This is where we are absolutely going to go. I mean, the sort of concept of really there being a robot for every person, the robot taking care of all the sort of the mundane activities that a person is doing, so that the person can add value. Value is good for the company as well, and all the routine entities. And these robots and the automation is actually extremely clever. Now it's very clever, and also process discovery and process mining is another. It's extraordinary the developments which have happened in this space. So I won't go into it in this call, but the things that you can do to discover processes which can be automated within organizations now with the software which is available is amazing. So it's really kind of caught me then, and so when I was thinking that I really wanted to get back to my roots, my technology roots, I was very particular about wanting to go into this industry. But then I wanted to look for, who was leading in the industry, and luckily I got to work for them. So here I am.
And who are they?
So the company's UiPath. So we're the leader in this space, according to Forrester and Gartner. But it's a fascinating field. I mean, it probably requires a whole new call, because it's not just about trying to sell the company is not about that. The things have evolved. What I see is, when I talk to people in my own company, people who've been at the company for a long time have been there for 2 years. so this is a massively changing, very fast moving environment and area, and the possibilities for companies are amazing. So I mean, we have a lot of blue chip companies in Thailand that are clients, but particularly now, of course, with COVID, it's even more dramatic.
So your role is covering, so you're the MD for Southeast Asia, is that correct?
Only Thailand.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, it's a big enough space. Lots of exciting things happening here.
Yeah. A lot going on. Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking forward to seeing how that progresses over the next years to come.
Thanks.
I think the last time I saw you before all of this happened was at the British Chamber election. And on that day, you were anointed as the new chairman for the coming year. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, it was the beginning of the year. It seems like 100 years ago now.
It does, yeah. A very long time ago. So I know that everything's probably slowed down quite a lot now, but what are your aspirations for this new role? Because I know I think Chris and Simon together have been in charge for a while. Are you planning to go in a different direction from them, or what do you have in mind? What is your hopes, your aspirations for the coming years for the chamber?
Yeah, and I have to say, so that was, the election was in January, so I took over then, and in fact, there was always, and I actually talked to people before as well, there was always a great deal of support from the board and previous chairmen that what we really wanted to do, what we really needed to do was add more value to members, and actually we started off. I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a shame in a way, because I have to say, with the board, the present board that we have at the British Chamber, we started off really coming out of the gates fast. I mean, we'd already had discussions, in fact, because I was on the board before the first few months, with really thinking about, okay, how can we really make a difference in member value? I mean, really just turn it, make it a whole additional series of benefits for members that are joining us. The different value we could give them, changing our back-end systems, changing the websites, doing completely different ways that we communicate. Again, realizing digitization, realizing the way that people communicate now on social media. We had a very strong young persons group. We want to diversify the membership as well. So add value to our existing members, but by diversify. And we came out of the gate very strong. We had a strategy meeting, I think, in early February, where we came out with a strategy document, put it on the website, told everybody about it. and then poof, we got whacked from this thing. So and we've had to, as a chamber, we have to ask the same questions that every business is asking. So we have to ask, do we spend money on this project, and do we spend money on that project, and how can we help our members in this new normal as well? So we've had to, I wouldn't say shelve that, because that's definitely going to be back on, but it's been part of this. You have to change. We've had to change. Everybody's had to change every day. So we've had to pivot very fast into different ways of working during this period. The different, of course, webinars and the things that we're doing. And COVID Resource Center, for example, on the British Chamber, we've got a really, really top flight group from law firms and accounting firms who are put a COVID Resource Center together for businesses. So it's everything. I mean, it's really the essence. We knew that there was a lot of noise out there, a lot of things, a lot of information, but we didn't think there was enough essence. And so we formed a group some time ago that was kind of responsible for getting the essence of this, and we put a COVID Response Center. But some also really clever ideas about, mental health and physical health. We're doing a COVID cookbook at the moment, which is chefs from the hotels are coming on and saying meals that you can cook at home. And, I think these are just, and these ideas have just come up from various places. We've been able to, the chamber have been able to do a great job on making these things happen. We've reached out to all the members, all the chamber people reached out personally to all the members saying, how can we help? Is there anything we can do? So I think, it's been different. We started off with these, I think, the right ideas, but we've had to change. We've had to adapt. There'll be a time when we're going to come back to those ideas, but right now we're in this sort of sort of daily adaptation, that just trying to help support members through the current predicament.
From my experience as a small business owner, I've really found the chambers to do a great job actually through this crisis. I think the chambers have shown why they exist. It is to be a hub for members, to help us to understand what's happening in society, to lead us to some degree, to bring us together, to amplify the voice of the members. I've attended many of the webinars that the BCCT have put on. Really good, high quality, informative, timely. For people who are not members of the chamber, I'd really recommend it. If you wish to be an active member of the community, the chamber is a great value way to amplify your voice and to be part of a community.
And interesting, this kind of, I think in this lockdown, I think people discover new things, families discover new things that they could do together. And in fact, we had a webinar. So we just had a second one yesterday, but a webinar with the UK ambassador about 6 weeks ago, and we had that was the first one, and we had whilst we organized it, we had British Embassy, British Council, British Club, British Legion, all the various country groups as well, St Andrew's Society and so on and so forth, all came together on that call. There were 250 people or something on that call. It was fantastic. And maybe I don't know if those people ever come together or have ever come together like that before. I haven't. I guess we do sort of in physical environments, but not like that. That was different. It was good. It felt good.
I think it's a good opportunity post-COVID to have some kind of alliance like that, like the British Council coming together with the British Chamber and the Embassy. We're far from home. It's good for us to stick together.
Yeah, exactly. It was good. I mean, the comments and questions were, they were good questions, good, respectful, and the ambassador and the embassy tried to kind of answer them, and then it was just good. It was and it made me there are some strange benefits which have come out of this as well in terms of the people we're interacting with and how we're interacting with them as well.
You mentioned that there was a strategy doc on the website. I haven't actually seen that yet. What are some of the juiciest ingredients in that particular menu?
Well, one which is, of course, in your backyard is particularly the recognition that well, and this was pre-COVID, of course, that the world has changed in terms of how it consumes information. This seems suddenly even more prescient considering what happened. But that was we knew that we needed to change our communications. Now that's to our existing members, but it's also to potentially non-members that we'd like to become members, extend those the potential people who become members. I mean, we would like to grow the membership. We would like to deepen the benefits for our present members. So, and the way that people are consuming information now is very different. Of course, even more different now, but 2 months ago. So we had some fairly ambitious ideas about how we wanted to completely change the way that we do communication, definitely away from hard copy, but moving to sort of digital consumption, sort of bite-sized consumption. Webinars were going to be part of that, not quite as profound as we see ourselves in now, but also, for example, getting into LinkedIn communities where we could attract potential new members. Also, we could actually do, people who are non-members who wanted to join a particular digital activity could join with a small bite-sized price, for example. So, I think this is the way that consumption is changing. So we had that very much in our mind already. We'd actually done already an RFP early on for that. It's what we decided to do right now is hold it. I think it's the prudent thing to do from a fiscal perspective. That was one thing. Another thing was our website. We really wanted to change the website, but again, it's sort of aligned as well. That your digital experience and your website, they're interrelated, of course.
Yeah, they're part of the same story. The website is the kind of hard copy, hardback, big version, and the social media activities are the little offshoots of it. But the core story has to be on the website. People underestimate websites a lot. They still have a lot of value.
And our website is like really functional, except there's almost just too much function available to it. So we really wanted to contemporize that basically, and link it, of course, with all the digital experience too. So that was another big project that we had in mind. We also wanted to reinvigorate the groups. I mean, we have groups, but we didn't feel that they were they were contemporary enough. There are new things which are around.
These are subcommittees.
These are committees. Yeah, committees. So we wanted to re-energize those, and in fact, what you got to do is find the right passionate leaders for those people. But lots of people who'd like to do that, and so going out proactively, finding those people, building those groups, then building activities around those groups. So re-energizing the groups was another key thing that we had, and we were blistering. We were doing really well on that. We had lots of new groups actually being formed with leaders. A lot of the board directors had stepped into those. I was really, the board directors, we have a great board. They're super active, and they were really prepared to invest their time and energy in this and develop new groups alongside that as well, because that's another sort of stimulation. So that was another area that we were looking at. How we lobby, both unilaterally and multilaterally, was another area that we were looking at. There are various multilateral organizations that we needed to look at as to how we should be working with the multilateral organizations, and then what we need to be doing by ourselves. In other words, there are some things that we need to do ourselves. So what were those things, and then how are we going to do that? How are we going to staff those things? Who was going to do that? And again, we were pretty out of the gate fast. We knew what those things were. We had people who were ready for them, and we were working closely with the embassy on these things. So we were pretty out of the gate fast on a lot of that stuff, actually.
Okay, so that's on the shelf for now, but ready to come off as soon as the doors open.
Yeah. I guess it will require even further. For example, digitization we're going to have to drive that even further. I mean, webinars are now part of our future. And meetings, online meetings. So that side of it, for example, will be kind of beefed up, if you know what I mean. So.
Well, whatever happens, I think the biggest asset that the chamber has is you. So I'm looking forward to seeing you more prominently over the next year or so, because whether it's a podcast or speaking at events, You have a superstar charisma, Andrew. So I think they've made a good choice.
That's very kind. No, but we have a great. I mean, really, I'm the board and the office. I think, you know, you never really know until you ask people. You know what I mean? Like you don't, if you don't ask people, you don't get their passion. You don't get there, and every one of them has stepped. So that is it's a sum total of energy has blown me away, honestly. I mean, and it's been kind of a little bit unfortunate in some respects, although, you know, we've done a good job in the pivot. But, you know, I think we would have had a great year, actually. I mean, it would have taken us probably the best part of a year to get these things done. We knew that, and we were lined up for that. So as you say, it's on the shelf, and we will do it. We'll get it done. But yeah, you know, I think our realization is, you know, there's going to be a 12-month impact probably from this. You know, like next year when we go to membership dues. Are people going to be able to pay their membership dues? Do we have to think differently about how people could acquire services, how people acquire the membership benefits? Again, the bite-sized chunks. You know, we've got to be thinking about that.
Okay, Andrew. I think I've taken up quite enough of your time for today. I know you're a busy man. Before I let you go, I know that usually when things are normal, that you're at the office early, you put in long hours, you're tied to the desk almost. This has been a new experience for all of us to be working from home, to be based at home. What have you found to be the essentials, the 3 essential things that you've needed to function properly while working remotely?
You know, one thing that I've done, I remember reading some person said that, you know, when they usually go to work, they like put on their suit and they do all their shaving and all that kind of stuff. I haven't gone to quite, as you can see, I haven't gone quite that extent. But I shave every morning. I dress for the day. You know, I do that on purpose a little bit. I put myself in the frame. So psychologically, that's one thing. And I've kept that going. I write. I find that I don't know what day it is. I mean, I really, literally have no idea what day it is. So I have to write down. I have a piece of paper that I write down first thing in the morning when I write down what day it is, so that I can keep reminding myself. And then of course, what I've got to get done, because I think it's quite easy as well to suddenly get distracted. You want to check out the news website, how many people have been infected today, or there's I've got to go and talk to the maid, or it's quite easy when you're at home to find yourself distracted. So I think it's important to have a sort of little anchor, more important than ever, I think, to have that little to-do list of things you want to get done during the day. And the other one, which I'm still not particularly successful at, is don't organize back-to-back meetings. Because there's no time for essential things that you need to do in between those meetings. So I'm trying to get better at that, but I was doing a terrible job, and so and it's uncomfortable.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrew. That's gone really quickly. It's been a pleasure to speak to you as always, and so many exciting things happening in your life. And good luck with all of them.
Thank you for inviting me as well. Thank you.
Pleasure. And if anybody wants to get hold of you, having seen this, what should they do?
Oh God, that's a really good question. Just email me, I guess. Is that Andrew.McBean?
Okay.
At uipath.com. So uipath, that's all one word, .com.
All right. And what kind of people should be reaching out to you to get the services that you're now providing? Who would you be looking to speak to?
Well, I mean, in some respects, I've got 2 hats on here. I've got so hyper automation is my company job, and so that's all about sort of robotics, software robotics, not sort of hardware, and so anywhere where there are really sort of lots and lots of mundane activities. COVID is what's interesting. Sorry, just suddenly is COVID has suddenly brought massive spikes of activity. This has been very unusual. So. A leasing company, for example, that had hundreds of thousands of calls for people who weren't sure about how to pay their car leases. Now that's way outside the normal norms of business, and we're finding this in many different. When hotels come back, they're going to get the same thing. When that happened to airlines, and when airlines come back, they're going to get the same thing. COVID testing, same thing. COVID inoculations, same thing. There's going to be these massive spikes where millions of transactions are going to be required in a very short period. So particularly that, I would say, if anybody has those particular types of requirements, is a very good time because it's because robotics really help with that stuff. I mean, in fact, it's almost impossible to survive unless you have that type of robotics. So anything like that, from a business perspective, but also from a chamber perspective, anybody's more than welcome to reach out to me and give comments or anything, any help that they need or anything. So all of that is good.
All right, Andrew. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Thanks. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.